You're now listening to Keepa-Live on the Disruptors Podcast Network. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Keepa-Live. Let's talk today about a very important issue, and that's the new law coming up January 1st that has been voted through and signed by the governor of the state of Washington that bans street racing. Well, why is this so important and why should we talk about it? Because street racing has become an epidemic. Unfortunately, due to Hollywood and Vin Diesel and the fabulous car racing that he had done on television in the promotion of I don't know how many movies they've done about racing vehicles, which was really based in a whole completely different world than what we live in today. Of course, reality TV picked up the torch and ran with it when they came up with all those great street racing shows. There were so many of them with Big Chief and the whole street racing gang. Those shows naturally were pre-set up on streets that were set for that activity with emergency vehicles and common sense rules that were in place. However, the urge for the younger generation to build up their cars, make them run faster, bigger engines, better suspension, and I guess the will to compete overtook them and they headed to the streets. The streets where innocent individuals have been maimed or killed in the last few years. As of January 1, street racing in the state of Washington is illegal. That's right, folks. It's illegal. And the governor has written the bill, and I guess in his mind, and signed a bill in his mind to stop all of these terrible things that have been happening in Pierce, King County, and other areas in the state of Washington, where kids at night have just decided, well, we're going to go out and see if we can do 100 miles an hour down the middle of a city street. Or maybe we can take an intersection and smoke our tires and do drifting around as fast as we can, smoke pouring out of the rear tires, and everybody raving and yelling, "Rah, rah, you're the greatest drifter of them all." Well, the opportunity of individuals that have come out to view this sporting activity, lives are in danger. There's only one flaw to the new law, which I'm sure the governor hadn't thought of, but he will eventually, and that is, let's assume that the police department arrives. There's a lot of activity. The first problem that you have is we have a shortage of police officers. Now, when you get into the street racing event or one of these drifting events, there's hundreds of kids showing up. And unfortunately, they haven't learned that you respect the law because they're there to protect you. Oh, innocent individuals, of course, are also blended into this mob violence that it actually occurs. And people are hurt. Sometimes even violent activities between different car racers break into gunshots fired at each other because I have the best car and you're not to be racing on my turf. Teams were developed, by the way, through the street racers. Great names were developed, logos pasted on the cars with decals so that they could rant and rave with their fans how fast they can go. Now, as I mentioned before, the state of Washington with this new, bill, put a kind of a simple twist to the whole program. Now, their attitude was that tougher laws. They're going to find tougher ways to break these street racers, taking the cars, impounding them, finding all legal aspects that they can use with the prosecutor's office to prosecute these individuals that are doing street racing. And as I mentioned as we got started with this podcast, there was a flaw, which I brought up. The flaw was simply, we've defunded the police departments. We do not have the manpower, nor are they allowed in a situation where a street racer flips them off and says, "Oh, I ain't going to jail there, pig," and takes off down the road. The police officer can just kind of wave and hope maybe he got a glimpse of the license plate. Because, as we all know, pursuits, high-speed pursuits, or any pursuit that is defined as a dispute by a police officer, chasing someone in a vehicle is not allowed. That's not allowed. What is going on with these people in Olympia? Hello? Yes, the law is great. There's nothing wrong with it. The House passed it, the Senate passed it, and the governor signed it and put it into law. Okay, if you cannot enforce the law because you do not have the tools to do so, isn't it bright? Wouldn't you not think of going back over this situation and saying, okay, we need this law, but we also need these officers to have the tools to enforce these laws? Now, the prosecutor's office, they've got the power to do so, but the situation is the individual street racer has to get to the prosecutor's office, has to be booked and fined and forced to appear in court so the prosecutor can do his job. And we can't do this with the system that we have today of telling police officers, no, Johnny, he sped away, so we'll just have to do something else. We'll have to try to make this street racing thing go away. It doesn't go away, does it? In Seattle, we saw violence break out when there were so many officers that arrived, but they couldn't control the crowd. Individual punks, cowards as I call them, were jumping on patrol cars, flipping them off, trying to break the car windows and things of this nature. Of the patrols officers, aggravation must have been absolutely through the roof. There they sit. Their job is to protect and make sure that people that are breaking the law are brought to court. And there they sit in a fear of trying to back out without hurting somebody, crowds taking over, busting signs over the tops of the cars, and becoming a mob rule of nothing but cheap punks. And that's pretty darn discouraging, isn't it? Now, it's interesting also when we look at the actual what happens afterwards, because the police officers, they're outnumbered. It's like, hey, put the wagons in a circle. The Indians are coming down. We're outnumbered, but we'll fight them off the best we can. This isn't going to work, folks. Oh, yeah, the law will go into effect, and maybe if they're lucky, they'll have some street racing that will be cracked down on and will put the fear of law in these idiots that are promoting street racing. And please, folks, don't believe that they're not. There's money flowing in the bets of what's going on. There's individuals that are promoting this garbage. We've got to get to them as well as to the street racers. We've got to put our foot down and say, okay, this is how it's going to be. We've got to really start a conversation on getting rid of the morons that are running the different council seats that say we must defund police. No, we do not need to defund them. We need to bring them back and give them the tools that they need. Take the handcuffs off of them and allow them to do their job, knowing that they have the backing of the community and the legal judicial system to fall back on so that these laws can be enforced, period. No more, oh, well, Johnny's a bad boy today, but Johnny's really very good. You know, his family was just kind of upset, and he wasn't really, well, he had problems. No, none of that stuff. You break the law, you go to jail. You break the law again and again, you go to the jailhouse again and again. You lose your car. Impounds are a great idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. Impound the car. But the problem is that within a week or so, Johnny figures out how to get the cash and the car's back on the street. I think these cars should be impounded and then sold in an auction place and really force an issue that when you lose your car because you're street racing, your car is gone. Maybe even we should come up with a law that says that the state has the right to take your car and dismantle it and sell it for individual pieces, raising money, I hate to say this, folks, for fixing the potholes. I'm sure that if we really looked into it, we could find better ways to put together a program that tells these individuals street racing is over. The checker flag has gone out. There are no more races. This is it. The track is closed. When we do that, then we have made this law official. And we can then know that the work that goes with our efforts through the community, through conversation, through people getting out and working together, not arguing about their political beliefs between each other, actually moving forward to protect our communities and help our families. This is what tomorrow is going to look like if we don't get things settled out today. Tomorrow is going to look like one big street race, more violence, more people dying, more people being crippled, more opportunities for businesses to shut down, more opportunities for law enforcement officers to be hurt, and more opportunity for the cheap punks to run this city and take over our communities. And I, for one, am going to stand on the side of the ideology that with a communication of conversation and people in Olympia working with us, getting these police departments back up to snuff, that we can take these new laws and make them work. If you've got any comments about our show, we really appreciate hearing from you. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do it. The first way is you can get a hold of us direct by email. You email us at keeba, that's Keeba agency, at gmail.com. That's Keeba agency at gmail.com. Or you can leave a voice message for us simply by going to our new website. That's keepasmiling.com. Keepasmiling.com, and leave us a voicemail message that we can interact with. And if you wish, we can even play it in our conversations on this podcast. Also want to remind you about the great shows that we have on the Disruptors Network. Dr. Troy Munson talks to us about good nutrition, chiropractic help to make our life a lot painless. And that's on the Revealing Wholeness podcast, hosted by Dr. Troy Munson. Also, shows that we have now going on and really excited for the 2024 season is, we're bringing it back, The Old Man Ranting from the Kitchen, the interesting life of a gentleman who just seems to fall into more interesting conversation with folks in our community. That's The Old Man Ranting from the Kitchen. We also have a new show coming on that I think will be very interesting to listen to, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And that's Community Heroes, where we actually interview community people in our areas that are real true heroes that you never hear about. We're also bringing back the Disruptors with Bill and Candace. Candace Thompson from the Wild Child Group is going to be back with us to talk about business and how business should be run and not the way it really is run today, with a lot of conversation, special guests, and more. That's the Disruptors with Bill and Candace coming back to the Disruptors Network. Until next week, when we can once again take a look at the actual conversation that we need to start in our communities to build America. Thanks for listening.